Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Again, we've got plenty of news in the NBA to get through. First, quick reminder, do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show YouTube channel or over on the podcast side on Apple Podcasts. Also, check out our Clips channel. I'll put the link in the description below here on the YouTube channel. Trying to get that one up over 1,000 subscribers. If you wouldn't mind going over there and hit that subscribe button on the Clips channel. Again, I'll put the link in the description. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. And I want to start by saying welcome home, Brittany Griner.
Yes.
Great news this morning that the United States was able to secure her release, and she is I don't know if she's home quite yet, but I know headed home. At least they said headed stateside. So
last I saw, I think she is back on
is
US
she
soil at this point.
All right. Good stuff. Yeah, no, great news to hear. That was done. It was nearly a year. I think 293 days. I thought I saw this morning. With that. So yeah, well, welcome home, Brittany Griner. Good work by all. And that's as far as I want to go, because anything else is just going to get us yelled at, and people are going to be mad and everything else. But anytime we can get somebody home, it's good news.
Keith, you want to know how this is kind of funny? How I found out about the Brittany Griner trade?
How's that?
Rob Pelinka was trending on my Twitter because a trade went down, and everybody in my Lakers world started tweeting about Rob Pelinka and whether or not he would have been able to get the deal done. And so I'm like, why is Rob trending? What happened? And by clicking into that, I found out Brittany Griner was coming home. That's the world I live in. Keith.
Nothing is sacred, man. Like people, nothing is sacred.
No.
They will turn anything and everything into a joke. But yeah, it's for basketball related, the Celtics absolutely curb stomped the Suns last night. I mean, just went into Phoenix, and it was one of those games where you could tell by the end of the first quarter, it was Boston was going to roll. They just came at Phoenix in waves and just kind of got really whatever they wanted on offense. They're locking in on defense, and things are pretty bright in Celtics land right now.
I mean, looking at the Suns, not so great. They got crushed by the Mavericks the game before. Got crushed by the Celtics. Is that what do you attribute this to? Is this just a blip on the radar? The Suns have been pretty good over the course of the season, but there's those kind of lingering concerns that this is the kind of team that folds when the pressure's really put on them. Is this an indication of that?
I feel like that's maybe a little unfair. I mean, they did make the finals 2 years ago, so I don't want to go quite there. But yeah, I mean, you got to start beating good teams too. You can't just load up on beating bad teams. But I still think they're a really good team. I think this one was Chris Paul's first game back. He was clearly rusty. The timing was off. It didn't look great for him. That'll get sorted out, and then they'll play better. If I had to put him in a bucket, I'd put them in a mix with 4 or 5 teams in the West. The West is just so compact. I mean, it's only 4 games between 1 and 11 in the Western Conference. So that's tells you basically everybody still kind of got a chance there, and that 11 takes you down through the 500 teams in the conference. The Timberwolves right on the outside, looking in on the playoff picture or play-in picture, I should say, at 12-12. So it gives you a real sense of where things are at in the West,
which is what we expected coming into the season. The West was going to be absolutely brutal, and with the Jazz playing better than expected, it's only gotten even more so. Even there's going to be multiple teams that may finish above 500 that still, even with the play-in tournament, don't make it into the postseason in the West.
Yeah.
Whew, it's going to be crazy.
It's going to be tough. One of those teams will fall, and something will happen, and they'll fall completely apart. But yeah, it's going to be tough. I think it's very funny. I was asked this today on the radio, and I said I think the East has the best teams at the top, and then I think the West is best, like basically all the next group, and then the East has some teams that need to step up if they're going to move up into that kind of upper echelon. But we'll see if Philly does. Brooklyn, there's a chance that they may still have quite a bit to say on where they end up as teams.
All right, I want to stick with, we were just talking Celtics Suns. Let's stick with your Celtics. Robert Williams back in 10 to 12 days. This is oddly specific. Why would they not just say 2 weeks? What's going on here with Robert Williams?
Yeah, well, and not only that, but Woj said 10 to 12 days, and don't be surprised if it's sooner. And I talked to someone, and they said he's not on the West Coast trip for nothing. You don't, a lot of times an injured player, especially one that's getting close, you don't bring them on a trip because you prefer leave them home, let them do their rehab work, let them get all their work in, and then they'll rejoin kind of their teammates when they get back to the home city. And in this case, Williams is there. I'm not ruling out that he plays by the end of this West Coast trip. They've got the Warriors on Saturday. By the way, first Saturday showcase on ABC. That's the first big Saturday night game with college football more or less wrapped up. And as far as the regular Saturday games, and then they've got the back-to-back next week with the Clippers and then the Lakers in the back-to-back. So
he will play Tuesday against the Lakers.
Maybe quite possibly.
That has been the Lakers' luck. We were just talking about this. They got they hit this East Coast trip just in time for the returns of Chris Middleton, Pascal Siakam, Joel Embiid, James Harden. There was another one in the mix there too. Anyway, they've been hitting all of the big returns lately on this trip. So that means he is going to play Tuesday, December 13th.
I would not completely rule that out. Now, I will say this. As somebody asked, like, would you bring him up, bring him back? They're playing so well. Would you give him a few more weeks? And my thing is, if he's 100%, play him, because there's no reason to continue to wait if he's 100%. If he's 99%, if he's 99.9%, no. Wait till he's 100%. You don't need to bring him back. But once he's ready to go, he's ready to go. Get him in there. And then you got to be very careful with him the rest of the way. I would be very surprised if he plays back-to-backs. I'd be surprised if he plays much more than 25 minutes or so as he's building his way back up. He'll probably start as low as maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then they'll build him up. But yeah, you can afford to take your time because of the fact they've gotten off to such a good start. But once he's ready to go, put him back in the lineup. There's no reason to continue to wait.
Yeah, absolutely. On the trade front, well, all right, let's do another injury because I don't want to do a bunch of negative injury stuff at the very end. Before we get into the trade front, Desmond Bane out 3 to 4 more weeks, still dealing with the big toe issue. Desmond Bane, heal up. He's so much fun to watch out there. It makes Memphis so dynamic on both ends of the floor. Look, they're a good team regardless, but would love to see him get back on the floor sooner rather than later.
Yeah, without a doubt. I just did radio in Memphis, my weekly Thursday radio spot, and they're big fans of the front office show, by the way.
Fantastic.
Which I love. Yeah, and they always pump the show up when I appear each Thursday. But one of the things I talked with them roughly 3 weeks or so ago when Bane went out, and I said, look, if this is all it is, it's 2 to 3 weeks. I think that was the initial timing. Then whatever, we move on. It's not a big deal. If it starts to stretch more than that, you get a little bit worried. And I've seen some stuff on social media again, because nobody can be reasonable about anything. You got to go all the way to extremes. And people are like, it's a sprained big toe. He can't play through this. What is he doing? I don't think that recognizes how much pushing off, how much jumping, all that stuff you're doing. And it can be impossible. If you don't have the range of motion or you have the pain anytime you're trying to do those things, you're not going to be able to play. So yeah, I do think there is this is the right thing for the Grizzlies. They're right there in the West. They're in
the 3 seed.
3 with Phoenix, both 16-9, and playing well. They did get Zaire Williams back. He made his season debut in their game yesterday, so they're doing okay. They're obviously hanging in there as best they can. But yeah, you got to get him back there because they're a finals contender with Desmond Bane. Without him, I think they're probably just shy of that.
Yeah, that's I think that's accurate. Obi Toppin now out 2 to 3 weeks with a fractured, non-displaced fibula head. That sounds all kinds of.
It sounds awful.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, that sounds like.
But then when you see 2 to 3 weeks, it sounds like that's. I mean, for you and me, that we're out.
Yeah, I'd be out 2 to 3 years.
We're out for the year. But still, that sounds.
You're in better shape and tougher than I am. So
that just sounds painful.
Yeah,
and I'm surprised that it's just a 2 to 3. I mean, good for him, but
yeah,
ow.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to finish my online medical school here and do a little bit more Googling and WebMD to figure out what's actually happening with this one. But yeah, I mean, and this is interesting because the Knicks, as much as they don't play Obi Toppin, as much as I think almost everybody but Tom Thibodeau would like, they don't have a ton at the 4 besides him coming off their bench. They ended up going big with both Isaiah Hartenstein and Jericho Sims for portions of last night. And Julius Randle, I mean, we know Tibbs will push minutes, but he's not going to push them much past 40 minutes per night. So this is going to be interesting to see how they play through this, because that is not a position of depth on that Knicks roster by any means.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be something that they're going to have to try to work through here, as
Yep.
the Knicks have been kind of hit and miss on the season.
Yeah.
So now they've got to, they're going to be challenged here with this one. Speaking of challenge, DeJounte Murray out 2 to 3 weeks for the Hawks with an ankle sprain. I mean, he's been really good for them, and with all the stuff that's gone on with Trae Young, obviously hopefully that's all water under the bridge at this point. But they're definitely going to need Trae to step up with DeJounte Murray now out.
Yeah, without a doubt. They kind of goes back to what they were, but the challenge is what they used to be also involved Kevin Huerter playing at the 2. Now you don't have that. So you're gonna have to muddle through that a little bit. Jarrett Culver actually stepped up and played some of the better basketball he's ever played in the recent games here. So maybe that's kind of where they go. You've got Justin Holiday on that team. But this is now DeJounte Murray, John Collins, and DeAndre Hunter all out. That's 3 starters. And that's a struggle. And this is a Hawks team that they've been okay. They're 13 and 12. They've lost a couple in a row. But they're kind of flitting around that 500 mark, right? It's just bouncing around there, and never too far ahead of it, never too far under it. So this is going to be a tough stretch for them to get through. I would, this might be the time to go. Not that people don't already have them, but go make an offer for Trae Young in fantasy, because he's probably going to be bombs away for the next 2-3 weeks, because there's just not a lot else in that lineup offensively.
I think on the fortunate side for the Hawks, they did just get Bogdanovich back. Yes. So that will help to mitigate. Not that he's not the exact same player as DeJounte Murray at all, but just in terms of another guy who could step in and play the 2 and maybe take on some bigger minutes as he kind of gets his legs under him and gets his wind and all of that.
That's going to be the key. It's going to take him a week or 2 to really get his minutes up. But, then you get Murray back, you get Collins, and now all of a sudden you're rounding into form. You just keep your head above water over the next two weeks or so while these guys are out.
All right, let's get into some trade talks here. The Knicks reportedly want to attach Cam Reddish to Evan Fournier in order to make a move. This is not a huge surprise. Reddish on the last year of his deal. Of course, you'd like to move Fournier if you can. Both of them now out of the rotation for the Knicks. My question is Reddish enough of a carrot to get somebody to bite on taking on Fournier's contract for next year? He does technically have 3 years under contract, but the third year is a team option, or non-guaranteed, as I recall. So that makes
it team option.
Or it is a team option.
Yep.
Well, in any event, you don't have to worry so much about that third year if he's not playing up to expectations. So what are your thoughts there? Reddish being used as incentive to try to get someone to take on Evan Fournier.
It would have to be a team that really loves Cam Reddish and has full intentions of signing him, because he's a free agent this summer. Now, he can be a restricted free agent, so you can control the process. But I think the challenge is you're taking on then, if you take on Reddish along with Fournier, you're taking on $18 million for Fournier for this season and $18.8 million for next season. And then Reddish, you're taking on basically $6 million for this season. And then whatever you got to pay him moving forward, which is probably going to be anywhere. I think Nasir Little's deal is the absolute bottom. That's probably the bottom of what Reddish would maybe take in a new contract, and then maybe up as far as maybe the MLE amount. So you're talking $7 to $11 million next season. So now you're talking $24 million this year, roughly $30 million next season. That starts to turn into, that's a bigger investment than I think most teams are willing to make. So I don't think this is the carrot that the Knicks hope it would be. And the Knicks have made a lot of noise about how they're not going to attach any picks to Evan Fournier to get off his contract. But let's see. They're sitting on some extra first rounders coming their way. They've got a Dallas pick that they're probably going to get this year, it seems like. Then they've got a future Detroit pick. That's got sliding protections through 2027, future Washington pick, which is lottery protected for the next couple years. And then that slides down to being a top 8 protected pick. A few years out, they've got a Milwaukee pick coming their way potentially. So they've got all these extra firsts. So maybe kicking one of those over and just saying, hey, can we do this? And all those picks have the standard turns into 2 seconds and all sorts of
Right.
other stuff attached to it. So I think, that could be something we see them do. Maybe it's, hey, take Fournier in this versus giving up Reddish, but it seems kind of clear Reddish not part of the plans. We talked about he's out of the rotation along with Derrick Rose in New York. So Rose, Reddish, and Fournier, 3 vets sitting that could probably all be fairly helpful to most other teams.
You mentioned the Knicks putting out there that they don't want to give up, they don't want to attach a future first or anything like that. 'Tis the season, right? If you've watched around, if you've been just listening to kind of the chatter around the NBA, you're starting to hear every team put out there what it is that they're setting that asking price high, knowing that there's going to be negotiation down, right? We're hearing the Spurs want everything for Jakob Poeltl, want multiple firsts. They want a first for Josh Richardson.
Yep.
I'm sure pretty soon we're going to hear the Rockets want a first for Eric Gordon again because they always do.
Of course.
They never get it. The Lakers they're only going to give up both their first if they get a superstar caliber. Well, I guess Woj used all-star the other day, but in any event, that just tells you trade season is going to start heating up because teams are starting to leak out there what their starting price is for some of these guys. And of course, that's going to get negotiated down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just how it works, right? You start high and then you move low. That's a kind of fundamental tenet of business. Did you know, though, the trade deadline is 2 weeks or 2 months from tomorrow? Is the NBA trade deadline, February 9th. So we're
right.
not quite as far out as it seems like. It's, it's going to come up here a lot faster than we think. I don't know when trade season unofficially opens a week from now on the 15th of December. I don't know that we're going to see immediate action.
Right.
But as a Spot Track, when I was kind of previewing trade season opening up, each of the last 4 seasons has seen a deal made within the first couple of weeks of it, and not all huge deals. One of them was James Harden getting traded to the Nets, and that was in the weird calendar because we're on the COVID impacted season. But yeah, we wouldn't surprise me if we see something happen. Doesn't mean it's gonna be a blockbuster, but I think we might get some action here within the next week or so. There's a good article Bobby Marks wrote for ESPN about who can be traded, who can't be traded, and all that stuff and why the reasons are and all those things. And I think let me pull up his tweet at least so I can get the numbers right. Assuming I find it, 73% of the league is eligible to be traded today. On December 15th, that increases to 89%. So we're going to be basically most of the league can be traded starting a week from now.
But I think that speaks to a bigger point here too. That while we look at December 15th as kind of like this, the floodgates are going to open because so many more players are going to be able to be traded. Well, kind of like at the what we're adding 15-16% of the NBA is going to now be trade eligible, which that may help. That can help open things up. Of course, if a player was in demand enough to get signed to a contract last summer, then maybe they still have value right now. But it also tells you that it's not like you've got 90% of the NBA simply can't be traded at the moment, and that's why nothing's getting done. No, nothing's getting done right now because a lot of teams aren't ready to make trades right now. A lot of teams are figuring out who they are, what they have, what they don't have, all that.
Yeah, we're at the terms of the calendar, we're a month in a week or so, maybe 7 weeks or so into the season now, maybe 8 weeks. In terms of games played, we're approaching the 3rd mark because everybody, 27 games is the trimester, and we're about at that there. But for the most part, it's teams don't want to do much until you get to around the 1st of the year. They want to really give their team, as they envisioned it, let's give them a real shot. But for example, last year, a good example of the earliest trade that was done last year. Do you remember what it was?
No.
Your Lakers.
What's that?
It involved your Lakers.
My Lakers made a trade last year at the beginning. See, Keith, I have repressed
season.
much of last year. It's taken intense therapy to do that.
Do you have it? Do you have Basketball Reference perfectly coded so that year's just blank?
Yes, yeah, I do. I have completely tried to omit anything that happened last year and erased it from memory.
Rajon Rondo.
That's right. Sent to the Cavs. Yep.
So Now, trade of need, right? The Cavs really, really needed a point guard at that time, so they made that trade. So we may see something pop up here in the next little bit where a team has a real need, and that sometimes drives it. But as always, deadline spur action. We won't see the most stuff going on until we get closer to the trade deadline on February 9th.
See, we've been mired in such misery that feels like 5 years ago. Like that, Rondo being a Laker feels like so. I wasn't even thinking of him on the team last season, and probably partly because the Lakers didn't really get a lot back in
Yeah.
return in that trade or anything. But in any event,
They saved tax money was the whole impetus on
that was
that trade.
the incentive for that deal.
Yep.
Before we jump to our last trade talk here, which is about Zach Lavine, I've got a question for you because I have a strong opinion on this.
Okay.
Josh Hart put this out there on Twitter, and he said, "What is better, the perfect waffle, perfect French toast, or perfect pancakes?"
Perfect French toast for me.
Oh, okay.
I love French toast, but only like if it's good. Otherwise, give me the waffle.
Okay, so you would rank them pancakes 3.
Yeah, I'm not a big pancake guy.
Okay. Okay, so this is great because we actually are going to be opposites on something
Man,
for a change. I am a big pancake person. In California, there's a place called the Original Pancake House that's absolutely fantastic. You can get like pancakes with bacon mixed in, pancakes with blueberry. Well, blueberries pretty standard, but all kinds of different things. They make fantastic pancakes. I'm a big fan of pancakes, so those would be my number 1. French toast are my number 2. Waffles are number 3. Took a vacation with my wife for our 10-year anniversary and went to Tahiti, which is beautiful. One of the most beautiful place I've ever seen.
Yep.
But what I remember are they had incredible French toast. Like that French toast would stack up with pancakes to me. But in general, I got to put pancakes at the top of my list.
Yeah, I love French toast. Well, waffles are it kind of depends. I turned into a chicken and waffles guy.
Okay.
I wasn't really a chicken and waffles guy for a lot. I kind of preferred my waffles. Like I liked fruit on, like, throw some strawberries on there, a little bit of whipped cream and mix it in. And then I was like, all right, I'll try the chicken and waffles. And I was like, all right, well, this is amazing. And I feel like that is like a truly like American like thing too.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not. Someone will probably tell us it's not. And some other place has been doing it a lot longer, but it feels like it's like, hey, you want some fried chicken with already like a blob of fried batter with syrup all over it? Yes,
and butter.
I do.
Yeah,
exactly. But I like pancakes. My problem with pancakes is too often I feel like they don't get cooked evenly. A lot of places, and then they don't end up good, and then you get kind of like that gooey mess, and I don't like that at all.
It's got to be done right. If it's done, it's got to be done right. If you're going to be like a pancake connoisseur.
That's a good question. What's leading? Did he do a poll?
He just kind of threw it out there. I think maybe it was to distract from a previous tweet that he had out where he said he stated, and Bleacher Report called him out on this. He said Home Alone isn't a Christmas movie.
What?
Yeah. And so he got, of course, they screenshotted that and called him out and everything. And then he retweeted and said he meant Die Hard. He just for some reason put Home Alone. Which, come to think of it, Die Hard and Home Alone actually have some similarities.
Yeah.
I mean, John McClane's defending Nakatomi Plaza, like Kevin McAllister's defending his house, right?
True. Do you have any interest in seeing Violent Night?
Kind of. Like but I will never get my wife to see it.
Yeah, my wife has absolutely no interest. She doesn't like anything that's gory like that. So she's like, I'm out. But yeah, it's gonna have to be one that's gonna have to wait. And then I'll probably end up watching in like July or August.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
It's some streaming service. But yeah, I'm very interested in that one for sure.
That's what's gonna happen. It's gonna hit streaming. I'm gonna watch it that way. Maybe I'll eat pancakes while
there you go.
We'll see.
And I'll do some French toast. Maybe we'll do one of those things where we queue it up and we can watch it together while we eat our breakfast foods.
We'll put it on playback and we'll do a watch along, and everybody can join us, and we'll watch the movie and we'll have breakfast food.
And the Violent Night folks will be thrilled about that one.
That sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan.
That's never going to happen.
You went so far off the rails.
Yeah. Well, what is this show about again?
I don't know. Probably basketball or something like that. Let's finish with this. The Bulls reportedly not looking to trade Zach Lavine. The Bulls are the team that have come up in multiple discussions as far as the team to watch, right? Because right now we know there's not that many sellers out there on the trade market. You've got your handful of teams that are tanking. A lot of other teams feel like they could very well be in the mix, and for good reason. We've talked about the play-in tournament and the way that has kind of changed the way teams are looking at themselves. But the Bulls are a team that opposing teams are looking at, saying they could flip the switch and say, that's it. We're not going to get it done this year. Let's try to sell off some players and pick up some future assets. But according to the latest report, it's that they're not going to put Zach Lavine out there on the trade market. They want to keep him for the time being.
Yeah, and I get it, right? Like I fully understand that from the Bull side. Why would you? He's one of your better players. So and they're not so far out of it. They're 10-14. They're only they're 2.5 games out of fourth in the East because it's still so early. But there are signs of they're just not playing well. Like they're unless it's against the Celtics, then they turn into the Jordan Bulls.
It's the ghost of Rondo.
Yeah, something like that. So they it turns into for the Bulls this year, I think is that they are this next month is going to tell us a lot, right? Let's get to the first of the year, see where we're at, and then maybe you do make a pivot to all right, we should move. Now here's the challenge. I think I brought this up when there was the whole stuff about Vooch and DeRozan to the Lakers and all that stuff is the Bulls can't just fully bottom out because one, they're probably too far away from fully catching up to a top 3 grouping there in the flattened lottery odds, but they need to be in the top four to keep their own picks. So even if you're fourth, that's scary because it only takes one team jumping you, and then now all of a sudden you're giving Orlando the 5th pick, and that's not where you want to be. So unless they feel really confident we can get all the way down, but even then, flattened lottery odds could push you down to 3, and a team jump just from that part of it. Then a team jumps in, and now you're pushed 4. Another team jumps, and now all of a sudden again it's 5, even if you had one of the worst records. And we do on occasion see 2 teams make that jump up into that top 4 grouping. So the Bulls are. I don't think we're going to see them bottom it out. Now the other challenge is, let's say they did that even this year. That's fine, but then that pick just rolls over to next year with only top 3 protection on it. So that's the little bit of a sticking point for Chicago. They're really not set up to be in a spot to really tank this year or next year, just because they're not really in position to do that because of that pick they owe the Magic. What they think they'd like to do is let's play out this year, see where it's at, deliver that pick, get that obligation off our hands. It's gone now. It's gone off to the Magic. And then we can reset everything and go from there. But then the challenge becomes, then they owe a top, it starts out top 10 protected, then slides to 8 for a couple years to the Spurs from the DeRozan sign and trade. So it's just the Bulls they're just not set up in position to really bottom this thing out over the next few years because of those picks they owe.
Yeah, if you burn it all down this year and then you still get and then you give up like the 5th pick or something, like not only are you subjecting your fan base to watching terrible basketball for the remainder of the year, and already it's been tough, but then you get the gut punch of you don't even get that silver lining of your draft pick, and that could be a very real possibility. Now,
I will say one thing with that, is you better be then selling them on, but we got 2 first-round picks and these 2 young players.
Yes.
And we traded DeRozan and Vucevic on top of it and got, X, Y, and Z for that. And, we've got this mess that we got to figure out with the Magic and the Spurs. But now to replace those picks, we have all these other picks coming in and we restocked our young talent. You would have to fully tear it down. You cannot hit a soft reset. You would have to really bottom it out and say, hey, what's gone is sunk costs, but we can start to replace those assets with other stuff, which is kind of what the Nets did as they were rebuilding things back up, was like, hey, let's start moving away some of these pieces to bring in other stuff so we can start to rebuild our asset base.
Well, and now for next year, though, top 10, if you go into the summer with the idea we're going to tear this down, I'd feel pretty comfortable that you can get within the top
2 years. That'd be top. That would be 2025 is when it switches over to. So it's very confusing. So let me lay it out just to make sure everybody gets it. It's 1 to 4 this year. They keep it, or 5 to 30 goes to the Magic. If that doesn't happen next season, that rolls over. 1 to 3, the Bulls keep it. 4 to 30, the Magic get it. Then if they deliver the pick to the Magic this season, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
2025 jumps to the Spurs,
Got
and then it starts that sliding process from there year to year with that. So it's messy because there's all these conditions on the Spurs of if they deliver a pick by X date to Orlando, then the Spurs can get it this year. So it just gets messy because you have to do that because of the step-in rule.
That makes sense. So you could bottom things out, get a high draft pick, but then again, you have the issue of you gotta if you want to keep Zach Lavine, you can't really do this because that's not going to make Zach Lavine happy.
No,
if you bottom out the team around him and then you're a lottery team, that's not going to work.
Yeah, you would have to, like I said, you'd have to completely blow it up, fully move everything, and just start over as best you can with picks and young players from other teams, or just write it out with what you get. I don't think you can push all the way in that direction. I think that's where they'll go. I think they'll start to play enough better that they'll feel good about, all right, let's go with this. Maybe we get Lonzo back, maybe first of the year-ish, maybe shortly thereafter. Now all of a sudden, we're starting to be the roster we envisioned, and we can move forward in that direction.
Yep. Which again brings us back to who's actually going to be selling on the trade market. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of teams out there that are, but again, that can shift very quickly as we get closer and closer.
Well, the bad teams only have like one or two vets to even sell, right? Like Orlando doesn't really have anybody. Maybe Gary Harris if they wanted to. Detroit, they don't really have many veterans. I think that people would jump at. Maybe Alec Burks, who's played pretty well for them. Houston's got Eric Gordon. Spurs have Jakob Poeltl, but for the most part, those teams are built around really good young players. So I just don't know who we're going to see them start to sell off there. I think the most interesting team, if they wanted to, would be the Hornets, right? Because they've got a whole bunch of guys who I think could be really interesting to a lot of different contenders because they could really fill holes and plug in, and whether it's starters or really good bench depth or whatever it is, they've got a bunch of different guys they could move on from. Really take that thing down to LaMelo Ball and not much else, and starting over with maybe him and hopefully Wembanyama, and all of a sudden, all right, well, that's a future we can build around. A ton of cap flexibility and everything else. So I've got my eye on Charlotte big time.
I actually think there's a big opportunity here if you're a team that's in a position to be a seller here, because I mean, simple economics, right? If there's, demand is high, you've got a lot of teams. Look at the West, you look at how many teams feel like, hey, we're a piece away or whatever. So demand is high and supply is low. What's going to happen to price? It's going up. I think you can get some good deals if you are selling this year.
Yeah, it's do you beat everyone to the market and kind of set the market, or do you hold out knowing someone's going to get desperate and then all right, we'll give you 2 firsts instead of 1 first or whatever it is for the players you're trying to move. But yeah, it is going to be kind of a fun trade deadline to watch. But I know I said it's 2 months. It's going to be here before we know it. But thankfully, it's 2 months. Like we've still got another whole month of let's see where teams fall out. Then that'll start to set who's going to be sellers at the deadline.
Exactly. All right. Well, everybody, make sure you are subscribing right here to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube. Go find the NBA Clips channel as well. You can find that in our description down below. Make sure you're subscribing there.
And tell us if you like waffles, pancakes, or French toast.
Yeah, let us know. How would you rank it? Yeah. Mine personally goes pancakes, French toast, waffles. Keith goes French toast, waffles, pancakes. Let us know. Are we crazy? Give us your ranking. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.